This presentation will highlight Amplify and the different ways that teachers can integrate Amplify into their classroom through lessons, the Polypad, and using Math Fluency by Kristen Stevens. Some of the features of Amplify Math are interactive lessons with warm-up activities and reflections. They can be used at home and at school to align practice in both places. They have a focus on discussion and reasoning so that students have opportunities to explain their thinking. And the game-like activities will reinforce concepts and make activities engaging and fun for students. Look at a sample Amplify third grade lesson. This is Arrays of Flavor, and students are going to look for patterns to make conjectures about multiplication. Each page of the lesson has different activities for students to do. On this page, students are supposed to set up the cups in an array pattern to match the number 16. So they are going to make an array in an arrangement to match the number and then try to see if they have the correct number. And if they do, each yogurt scoop will have a cup. And then they will discuss, what do you notice and what do you wonder? This page, they are going to create two different arrays of cups that could hold 12 frozen yogurt scoops. So they use the numbers to increase or decrease to make the pattern that they would like to make. And hopefully that will create an array that will equal 12. So they will check their work, and if they are correct, the scoops will match the cups, and then they are going to try to make a second array, and let's say this time they make a mistake and see what will happen. The number of scoops will not match the number of cups, so they will be told to try again, and this time hopefully they will make a match by changing the numbers, and they did make a match. So the program is very interactive with students. They have a similar activity on this page, except this time they want them to make an array that totals 15 yogurt scoops. Let's see how that looks. And so they are going to make a pattern of 3 and 5 and then check their work to see if that will match, and it does match. So it will give them a second option, and hopefully they are going to make a connection that they can reverse the order of those numbers to 5 and 3 and check their work again to see if they made another match, and they did make a match. So it will ask them, what do you notice and what do you wonder? Some of the pages would like them to explain their thinking, so they give them some tools to draw or a text box to write their words. So on this page, it's asking them to discuss their thoughts, and let's look at how they can respond. They can use a tool to write by underlining, drawing arrays, making marks on the page, or they can use a text box. And the question is, what conjecture could you make about multiplication expressions with the same value? So let's say they respond that the products are the same. They could respond, and then the teachers can see these responses in their portal. So this is how students are interactively explaining their thoughts. with the teachers able to view their thoughts. Now it would like them to select 2 expressions with the same product to test their conjecture. So hopefully students will recognize by now that they will select products with the same factors. So it will model for them in pictures if those numbers align, and they did. So we're going to try another one where they will change the numbers. And again, they matched the same factors. So it's modeling for them how those align. But what happens if they do not match? Let's look at that. If they picked 2 numbers with different factors, it will show them that those do not align. So it will prompt them to try again, and then they will pick numbers that do align. Well done. Here is a think, pair, share activity that they may do with a partner or they can do independently. So it will give them a prompt. How can arrays help you prove that this equation is true? And they will look at the array model, 4 times 5 and 5 times 4. And it's going to teach them that arrays can help show that the order in which 2 numbers are multiplied does not change the product. This is called the commutative property of multiplication. So some of the pages are really just about teaching them the concept, and this is what I call a page where they're just learning or teaching or maybe discussing the concept with a partner. Here's a page where they need to explain or respond to a question that says Jan and Diego are determining the product of 5 times 8. So let's look at what they would come over here. They have their pen tool or their text tool. And the question is, how is it helpful to know the commutative property when determining products? Hopefully they're going to count the array and understand that they can look at this array and understand that an array of 8 times 5 will have the same product as 5 times 8, and that they can count the array to get the product of 5 times 8. So here's a demonstration of the different arrangements of the arrays of 5 times 8 and 8 times 5. And it wants them to explore how they look different, and the prompt is just asking them to consider if they think it is easier to count by multiples of 5 or multiples of 8. Page students are being asked to show and explain their thoughts. So they are supposed to select 2 expressions with the same product. Hopefully they are going to select the 2 expressions that have the same factors. And then they will either make a drawing or use their text box to input some information that the teacher can view. So they can type in a response. 8 times 6 and 6 times 8 have the same factors, so they will have the same product. That's one way for them to respond or explain their thinking for the 2 choices they selected. They may grab the tool and try to draw an array or some other type of drawing or equal groups to show their thoughts, and that would also be another option. The last page of the lesson is a student self-assessment where they can pick the emoji that best matches how they feel they recognize their understanding of the concept. So I go over these with students and ask them what they think the blue emoji with all of the question mark means, the second blue emoji with just one question mark means, the yellow face where he's thinking, the green face with the smile, and the green face with a really big smile, so they understand what they're selecting and so that they have an understanding of why they need to communicate their thoughts about their understanding in this self-assessment, and that this gives feedback to the teacher about what students understand and if they feel like they need extra support in the concept. Let's look at some of the other features in each lesson, including the teacher move tabs and student supports at the bottom of each page. The teacher moves tab can include some different ways to pairs, approximate time that each lesson should take, the pacing, the purpose of the lesson, some teacher prompts, ways to monitor students. If you need to differentiate, there are some links and some teacher prompts. The student supports are what the students are expected to be doing during the lessons. So while these look different on each page, there are different ways to look at the teacher expectations and the student expectations in each part of the lesson. Useful features of Amplify include the Polypad, which is an interactive collection of digital manipulatives for students. Some of the digital manipulatives include polygons and shapes, fraction bars, fraction circles, algebra tiles, number tiles and cubes, number bars, number frames, and the coins, dice, and spinners. Fraction bars and circles are useful for finding equivalent fractions and teaching the concept of a whole. So some of the ways you can use the fraction bars, they can be changed into percentages or decimals, and you can drag the fraction bars over to the whiteboard. So let's start with a whole and then drag some of the other models over and make some comparisons. So you're going to line those fraction bars up so that you can align the fraction bars and see if you can make some equal groups. And this is how we teach students to make equivalent fractions, to see how many align to make a number in an equal group of other groups. So you can draw on there with the pencil tool to see if the lines align to make those groups. You can erase them, and then you can put text on the screen if you want to ask your students a question. So let's see what that looks like. So you could display the graphic and then put a prompt or a question on the screen, and then students could also have this on their own screen. The number tiles and cubes are useful for addition and subtraction concepts, and they could also be used for decimal models. So you've got your base 10 models of ones and tens and 100 pieces. And then you've got some 3D model pieces and views, and then additionally you have some Unifix cubes. So you can drag the pieces over to display them, and this is how we build those concepts of ones and tens and hundreds, both in base 10 models, and then in 5th grade we build on this to use decimals, also in 4th grade. So you can duplicate the pieces, and then you can also use your Unifix cubes if you have a need to use those. You could even use these for building volume concepts. So these are useful for various concepts in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade digital tools. The number frames are useful for teaching multiplication patterns, arrays, and making groups of 10. So you have your empty number frames, and you've got two different colors. You can make different arrangements depending on what concept you're trying to teach. And then you've got different arrangements of 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, all the way up to building 10s. And so you want students to visually be able to look at these models and see how many are missing in order to make 10. So this is very useful for making those groups of 10. You can duplicate the number frames if you're trying to teach the concept of more than a whole, or if you need duplicate number frames for multiplication patterns. The last feature I would like to highlight is how Amplify can be used for math fluency practice. There are options for numbers, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So here's a small size of a sample class. You've got different activities. You can give them assignments. So this class is working on multiplication, but you can see the different assignments in the drop-down box. And then the teacher can follow their progress. And this group has not completed any of the multiplication patterns yet, so nothing is filled in. But when they do, this chart will start to fill in and let the teacher know where they need support. So it is a good way to support students in their endeavors of math fluency. Like to sign your students up for Amplify, you would make an educator account, which is free, and create a class. You would display the class code for your students. They will visit learning.amplify.com/join and help your students enter the class code and create an account, and then you will start exploring and have fun. Teachers can assign lessons, or students can explore on their own. So this is the ways that your students can join the class. You will present your class code, so it will give you this option. And when you present the class code, you can put it on your whiteboard, display this for your students. It'll be large and they can all put the code in. It's a 6-digit code. And then they can join and participate in the lessons and the fluency. So you definitely need to create a class, and they need to have individual accounts if you want to be able to track their progress. And I highly recommend that you follow along and join Amplify and get your students involved in these interactive lessons. If you would like to learn more, join learning.amplify.com. This is Kristen Stevens. Thank you very much.